Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to speak about ATSA and not COACH this time. ATSA is Art Think South Asia, but ATSA for short. But just to go backwards first is, arts management didn't just happen in India. We have to go back to the late 90s when the visionary O.P. Jain, who actually had the first ever huge 3-day conference on arts management in Delhi. And he invited not only cultural people from secretaries of culture, etc., but also the leading cultural people who were, the impresarios, etc., to Delhi, and international cultural managers, people in cultural policy, etc., and had a 3-day conference. I was a young person who'd just come onto the art scene at that time, and I was surprised to hear how vociferously anti-management everybody was. Yes, they just said arts must not be managed. What do you mean by arts management? Artists are free bodies and we do not need arts management. And I think whereas O.P. Jain really tried hard to push it, he did a series of case studies on various things, he even tried to institute it into an organization, but through lack of funding, because this was supported by the Getty Foundation, it did not take off. We're talking about late 90s. Cut to 2009, I think that stayed with me a lot. I was also fortunate to do a short arts management program in Salzburg. It was a European Summer Academy. And then I also went on to be a Clough Fellow, which was another form of leadership in 2009. But it was at the Goethe Institute's behest, where I'd been talking about we need cultural management, we need arts management, you don't get it. Also from my personal experience of running an arts organization and reaching a glass ceiling. I mean, you run it, you raise the money, you build a building, you do this, and then what the hell, how do you go forward? And really you reach a glass ceiling, and what are those skills? And if some of us who've learned on the job and done fairly well, what about the many, many cultural practitioners across India and South Asia who were feeling that? Because many of us, and I have to say that, and there are several ATSA fellows here, many of us start off with great enthusiasm, we go great gusto, and then 3-4 years later, there's no money, your teams break apart, and then what do? So I think it's really important for us to, we felt, when I was invited by the Goethe Institute to put this together, that let's put together a program, a 2-week intensive followed by a secondment in international organizations for cultural practitioners across South Asia, because that was important also to build the networks in the region, but for people who were already practicing. So we were not looking at students who would get into MA in cultural management, which happens internationally. So here's Arts Thinks South Asia, and this is one of the fellows who said that the course enabled us to actually get going. It's basically a 2-week intensive. We look at very traditional things like strategic planning, marketing, fundraising, as well as now more and more art and law, as well as media. The digital media in the arts. It's a 2-week intensive. We also look at cultural policy, like a full day, because we believe you need to know the macro picture and the micro. And after which, several of them are invited, paid to go and second in international organizations across either UK or Germany. In 3 years down the line, British Council joined us as a very important partner. We also had the Piramal Foundation because Ashwin was also an ATSA fellow, and he went on to believe that it was necessary that we build this the way we did. Just to say that I think ATSA is trying to fill that need to be an ecosystem builder. We're really trying to push where we've been wanting to do all these things. But also, we call ourselves ATSA Management, Policy and Research. And I have to say it's very difficult. Just getting the management going, we've covered 150 fellows, but we also do short courses across India. And we've done several 3-day short courses, bringing in people from all over. So when we did it in Goa, we had somebody who came all the way from Kolhapur, who was running a small theater. He spoke Marathi, he came there and he said, I really want this to work. It was a people's theater, and it somehow helped him, and 3 years later we found out he was making it work. So we have a fellowship, we have short courses workshop, and we've been trying to do some research, some of which Rashmi did for us with ASEF in putting together case studies. We really believe what we don't have at the moment is enough data. We can say we want to start a network, we want to go to the government, we want to talk about it. It doesn't work because we just don't have enough data, enough case studies about various things. When I was looking for a case study, The only one I found was on the JLF by the Harvard Business Review, and to use even for training and for teaching. So where are we going to get these mega case studies from the region? Because our contexts are different. We cannot keep using international case studies. I mean, currently we have tutors who come very well intentioned and very well they teach. We have somebody who's the head of the Barbican, COO, he teaches finance. We also have the head of marketing from the South Bank, and we have somebody who comes in from the East. You know, we have Lydia, and we've had Milena and other people who talk about strategic planning. But all their case studies are from their part of the world. How are we going to build the local sector, and how are we going to build the local context? We've done several, we have evening courses, something that was borrowed, evening lectures, which kind of are inspirational, and we borrowed that from CLAW. And we've had several of our fellows go through many of these and share practices and come back. This is a research project that was done, which we asked Rashmi to help us with. And this was done, this is probably the only little booklet that we have of caselets. But we did realize very soon that we needed to train the trainers, you know, because we're not talking about business management, we're talking about arts management, and it needs a certain way of thinking. And so we did a train the trainers, which was really trying to do a kind of a institutional training. How do you actually how do you train? And we had about, Rashmi being one of them, several people, about 6, 7 people who came in and began to do a train the trainer, something that we want to produce, because if we're really to make a difference in the art world, we need to have our own data, our own case studies, our own trainers, before we're able to actually talk, because everybody can say that we're training, but we need to think about the arts sector and be part of it. Just wanted to say that ATSA has also supported many projects. For example, an Emmy in, this is Think Arts, which by, she brought this project to ATSA, and it has flowered since then. We have an Emmy in dance practice, which Mandeep did, which was his project when he brought it, because each of the fellows is supposed to bring a project and take it. TFAST came to us when, we've also worked in, we've done short courses both in Iran, Kabul, and in Dhaka, and we continue to do courses across. And I have to say that we had the Kushk residency, but also we had arts management programs. We're happy to say that the SMART, which I know was in the making when it came about, but it's fantastic that 3 of our ATSA fellows are part of that and actually started it. And Tehran Art Management Program was started by 3 of our ATSA fellows after 3 years. And we went there to train a little bit, and now it's taken off on its own. And so these are some of the testimonials. And the last one is very telling, closing the full circle, which says the arts need to be managed. And we don't talk about managing in the way that we say so, but really we need to be efficient, we need to be professional, and we need to really service the sector that we believe in, which are the artists and the curators, etc. I'm also to say that I was very fortunate that we did short courses with CCRT under Neena Ranjan's time, and we did it for government sector as well as for the ASI. And there were many challenges. Having now worked in the government sector, I think I would reframe that very differently. But this is what we have done, and yeah, it's been 10 years, we've covered 150 and almost 300 arts professionals. I think we have many ATSA fellows here. Put up your hands, some of you. Yeah, many ATSA fellows, which is great that we're all here. And we've got tutors here too. Yeah, and evening speakers, several of us. So I think we've really kind of worked in India, but also across South Asia. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Deepthi. Thanks for this opportunity and your presentation, Pooja. It was really good to know in detail what ATSA is doing. A lot of those skills are actually needed also where we work. Sahapedia being an online encyclopedia on the art and culture of India, mostly we work in the field of documenting cultural practices or art practices, right? So the way I took this people question was that what are the concerns that people have when they work with Sahapedia? So when we're in the field of documenting art and culture, when people join us, what are the questions they have? And these questions are not just for them, it's also for the organization. So just to give you a background of Sahapedia, we started with about 5 people, that was 10 years ago. Then we grew in the middle to about 45 people. A little funding crunch later, we're now down to 25 people. These are all issues that those of you who've worked in the not-for-profit sector will recognize, that these issues also happen. Some of the challenges that not-for-profits face in the culture sector are that funders insist that you make only project-based hires. And this plays out, I'll tell you, in the arts management sector, right? So if you only make project-based hires, it means that the people you are training, that expertise is lost once you can no longer keep them on for other projects. There's also the issue of HR management. Nobody wants to spend money on the organization. They want to spend money in the field, which means that the organization itself cannot hire too many skilled people. And arts managers, people in Sahapedia, we comprise like editors, writers, photographers, videographers. They also need HR management. And without that, it's very difficult to keep them on, okay? So there are issues that arise in the running of the organization. And those become challenges, and none of us is trained to do it, but those of you who rise to a position are forced to deal with it, right? So these are some issues that emerge, but the questions that people come to us with, particularly young people, or even at my level, actually, some of these questions crop up occasionally, are how will a career in this pan out? So there is a real lack, and I think, Parmesh, you mentioned it earlier during your talk, was that the idea of imagining a career in the culture sector in India. Like, how do you imagine 5 years down the line, where will I be? 10 years down the line, where will I be? This is the kind of role model. I think we have heroes in this sector. We definitely have heroes. This person built an institution. But how did they get there? And like, what do you have to do to try and get there? Is not clear at all. I mean, I come from a background of history, anthropology, MBA, market research, all kinds of things, and how I ended up here is not something that's replicable. So how do you dream about a career in this, right? So there's that imaginary lacking. And I think there's also, who do I talk to about this? So this is the HR management issue. So if you have any issue about like your pay scales are very, none of us know what our colleagues are getting. None of us know what kinds of raises we can ask for. How much can the organization afford, really? So all of that leads to a sort of climate of uncertainty for people in this sector. And that's not a very good thing to work with. It's a it leads to a sort of miasma of uncertainty, right? And then there is you want me to do what? Like when I get younger colleagues, which is the multi-skilling, like learn everything and do everything for every project. From writing project proposals to deciding budgets to actually skilling people who are going to be doing work in the field, saying you go to the village and you go document, you also take photographs, you also write up the article, and then you also like, really, it's impossible to have all these skills in one person, but we expect to do it because our budgets are very tight. If you can only hire so many people, and like you said, there is a real sort of shortage in the market for arts management. So if you don't have people already with the skills, then you're going to try to get that one person to do everything. And the person who's coming in feels overwhelmed. So when they come into an organization and they've been told, yeah, you're going to be part of the outreach team, and you're going to manage some events. They're not told that you're going to be, like your most important skill at that point is who to CC and who to BCC. Really. I mean, it comes down to this because sensitive things come up, right? And half the issues we face are because of communication. So who to CC and who to BCC is a skill that, trust me, you only learn on the job, or you've actually gone through some of these modules at ATSA and someone has told you that this is the way to deal with corporates, this is the way to deal with governments, this is the way to deal with your collaborators. Okay, since the 1 minute note has been flashed at me, 2 more questions. So one is, has anyone done this before? Which is a question of mentorship, right? So structured mentorship, how do you get that in an organization with fluctuating with people? So if you are in the organization, but your senior people keep changing, or you're a senior person, but the young people keep looking for opportunities, so how do you structure mentorships, and perhaps at an not an industry level, but at a sector level, how do we make this happen better?
When we are having institutions headed by people not from the field of culture. Most of the institutions in government, you talk of zonal cultural centers, museums, they are not headed by people having some base in culture. So that training in art management becomes more and more important. Definition, everybody knows we are working in this field, but still those skills are lacking which are required for dealing with artists, the sensitivity which artists have. In the prelim session, we were talking about L1, 3 quotations. So when we get people who are not having any exposure of art, they are stuck with that stereotyped working of government sector. Art management is something where, like Pooja ji said, that we need a kind of multitasking person who has control starting from the planning till the execution and carrying out, like I always use the word, taking culture from classes to masses. We have to think of the person at the end of this ladder where we can teach them also, involve them also. So art management becomes more important from his point of view also. The challenges are, like, we have lots of diversity in our country, and to map that, mapping of vast canvas of Indian culture, multiple performances, visual, literary, creative arts, bringing all of them under one umbrella is a challenge. And to develop strategies, to formulate methodologies which are applicable to each strata of the society. So these are the challenges. And then training and capacity building, because you generally hardly get any time for training. You are posted in a department and then you are asked to execute. So that capacity to build the training is very much required. Then we have to work on conservational aspects also, academic research and applied research. All these are challenges. Then managing the performances, showcasing Indian art and culture on global platform, these are the challenges. CCRT was conceptualized as an institution to work on training aspects and to link culture with education. And our mandate was to not only train teachers, teacher educators, but cultural administrators, educational administrators also. So we have developed certain pedagogical methodologies where we are trying to link culture with education, because education and culture are taken as two sides of the same coin. CCRT has developed certain courses for teachers, teacher educators. We have an orientation course which is generally of 22 working days duration. When we started in 90s, it was for 2 months duration, because we wanted to cover all the manifestations of Indian culture, but it was not possible to get teachers for a longer duration, so it was now curtailed to 22 days. Similarly, the role of puppetry in education. We work with not only the senior level teachers, but with primary school level teachers also. And puppetry becomes an important tool for them, because in generally government schools, one teacher has to work for a continuous 5 years with the same set of students. So to break the monotony, this puppetry can be utilized. And then we have all the schemes which are implemented by Ministry of Culture for the artists, scholarship and fellowship schemes. So that is, CCRT is the vehicle for that also. And we believe in Catch Them Young policy. In the age group of 10 to 14 years, once the child is selected, the scholarship goes up to 20 years of age. And it facilitates their training. They can learn from their guru, from their institutions in their vicinity. And there is a strict monitoring also. After every 2 years, they have to undergo a renewal test to see that they are going in the right direction. Then we have another scheme for young scholar artists in the age group of 18 to 25 years. It's a kind of advanced training where 2 years they can learn from some institution or some senior guru, and they are given as much as 5,000 rupees per month. So this scheme is very popular among those who really want to pursue culture as career. 2 more schemes. One is junior fellowship, which is meant for the age group of 25 to 40 years, and the government provides 10,000 rupees per month. And some subject needs to be taken related with Indian art and culture, focusing on the applied aspect also. Then senior fellowship, 40 years and above in the field of Indian art and culture. We are taking some audio-visual documentation work also to supplement our training as well as our research in the field of Indian art and culture. Certain cultural educational packages also have been developed where the creative activities for the teachers in classroom teaching, how to link culture with their subject of teaching, because there is no additional time given to culture, particularly in government schools, where still it is taken as extracurricular activity. So to make it co-curricular, we teach them how to link it with their subject of teaching. Then CCRT had organized various capacity building workshops, close collaboration with Ahmedabad University, with art education. CCRT is working constantly in the field of art education, has trained more than 2 lakh teachers and district resource persons, opened cultural clubs. This is a scheme for the government schools where they are provided with an amount of 7,500. And 198 schools have been covered, and 13,000 children have been provided scholarship in more than 300 art forms. We have interpretation center at Varanasi also, where the 10 schools have been selected, and each school has been assigned a personality, cultural personality, like Ustad Bismillah Khan from Banaras, and that interpretation center has been developed like a resource center, where you'll get all the information related with Ustad Bismillah Khan. To cut short, we are taking new initiatives to enhance our outreach and coverage. We have started using the modern information technology. We have e-portal connecting CCRT headquarters with all our regional centers at Hyderabad, Guwahati, and Udaipur. Then we have connectivity with 25,000 schools, where 2 periods are allotted in a week, where we conduct a kind of virtual classroom situation. After having elected them, students can ask questions also. Recently, we are going for online courses also in art education, and cultural mapping project, which is one of the very prestigious project of Government of India. We are involved in that also. Thank you.
My first question will be to you, Rishi. The CCRT website has, when you look at the list of scholars, there is a lot of support for training and upskilling of artistic form. But what I'd like to know is there a mandate, are there future plans for the CCRT to turn its focus to arts management and training of arts managers? Because as we said, that's a lack that keeps coming up, and I'm sure will keep coming up in the room. So what is that government mandate that we're looking at from that angle?
See, we, as I told you in my presentation, that have trained more than 2 lakhs of teachers, but there was a strong need felt while dealing with heads of the institutions that this art management training is very much required, because they generally come for 2-3 years posting. And during that, if their capacity is not developed, then sometimes the institutional goals are also defeated. So we started with the training of zonal cultural center heads, because zonal cultural center are the institutions, 7 ZCCs we have. They are supposed to work at grassroots level and supposed to work with the traditional folk artists.
Sure.
They are there to promote. Now, if somebody coming from a background like IPS, IAS, and they don't know how to interact with a artist who is not much educated, who is not well versed with the modern marketing skills. So there, that management skills is an important.
So they get management training specifically?
Yeah, they get that kind of training. Then we started organizing training programs for even museum professionals, those who were in the field of documentation and resources. So CCRT has a mandate, broad mandate, to train the art managers also.
It does have a mandate,
Yeah,
okay. Have those, who does the training?
Generally, the resources we get is from the various artistic institutions. It's a kind of more based on visiting faculty or collaborating with, like you did one course in the time of Neena Ranjanji. So we collaborate with certain management institutes as well as the institutions working in the field of Indian art and culture.
So actually that's a good segue to my question to you, Pooja. You have worked with the CCRT as well. You said you did 2 courses with them. Can you tell us, and this is something you mentioned, that there are different challenges in training for government organizations or within the government sort of situation, and in non-profit, private, non-governmental areas. Can you tell us a little bit about those challenges? What are those specific challenges?
I'm sure Rishiji has already mentioned that, so yeah. I think just to say that the not-for-profit or the CSO sector, so to speak, is very self-motivated. You know, there are people who we're talking to who want to do what. There's a passion-driven, and it's about imparting skills to people who already are in the sector, right? With the government, when we were doing it, and we did it once for ASI and once for zonal cultural centers, and also other organizations which were government, basically. So City Palace came and other people. I think the biggest problem is that several of the people who attend these are not in decision-making capacity. So even if you're talking to them, and they may be quite passionate, they may be passionate about theater, this, that, but they don't have the decision, they can't think of vision, mission, goals. I mean, they might do it for their little thing, but they need a check-off from the top person. And if the top person is not sensitized to the arts, doesn't really think like that for the organization, you can forget about it. I mean, it doesn't work, right? So actually it's that. The second problem that I faced when we were doing the ASI training was that there was a strong resistance to us outsiders trying to tell you what to do, whereas we were actually facilitating. We were just saying, okay, you tell us, we understand that, but there was this strong resistance saying, okay, what do you know? You know, you're not supposed to touch monuments, but now we know that we need selfie points. We can train. The senior people who came actually wanted to tell me that you don't know anything, please leave. We will do our own trainings to our own juniors. But that is a self-referential thing. So there's no, there's no input that goes into it, or a kind of a objective way of looking at it and saying, what are the gaps? Because that they will keep talking to each other, because because there is such a strong hierarchy in government that nobody will say what they really believe. And I have realized that more so now, after having worked in government, that you have to tell them, please speak. They will not speak. Because if you're the boss, then you must be knowing it, and they might say it's not working later. They'll tell you everything that's wrong if you're not the boss. If you're the boss, they will not tell you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that true just for the government, though? I feel like that might be true for...
Well, I would like to believe that that in the CSO sector, we are more democratic and have more flat organizations, and we can tell each other off or leave. But yeah.
Fair enough. Neha, I'm going to come back to a question that you raised in your presentation about career trajectories. Now, given that we have something like the ATSA, given that we have a CCRT, how do you see the work that you're doing with Sahapedia? What is it? How are you addressing career trajectories? How do we look at? We know what needs the sector has now. We've identified more or less. What is it that? How do you feel that we need to perhaps start addressing this particular question about career trajectories?
Well, I think CultureCon is a great way to start. I mean, we all need to come on board on a single platform and say that these are the issues that we're facing and how do we address them together, because there's no single organization that's going to come up with that solution. Having said that, I mean, I think there can be more information given out, maybe more modules done like ATSA does, on all the, at least, areas that we need to know about as people who are involved in arts management. So you mentioned, for instance, intellectual property rights, or like law, and HR. Law. I mean, these are areas that we don't think of as critical, but when you start practicing and you start saying that we need to scale things up or we need to get out to more people, then these are all things that come back to you. So there is, I mean, and then there is the other issue, which is about philosophy and approach, like which is about the ethics of the practice, right? So keeping in mind all the diverse stakeholders. So if you are a curator or you are an artist or you dance or you write, who are the people that you need to keep in mind, or you're managing some of this talent, then who are all the people and points of views that you need to keep in mind when deciding on projects. Earlier, I think there was a question of creative collaboration in one of the breakout sessions. And so who is in a position of power and who's not in a position of power, and how do you democratize communication, right? So these are all things that when we talk about arts management, so it's not, I mean, earlier I kind of made a joke about who do CC and who do BCC, but that's not all of it, but that's part of the ethics of it, which is how do you communicate with all the people that you need to communicate with, and how do you keep their rights and responsibilities in mind. So I think these are the things that at platforms like this, we need to figure out. Sahapedia itself, like as an organization, we do on-the-job training is what I would put it. Like we've done some heritage documentation workshops, so which is about skilling people in documenting cultural heritage. But it's not about arts management in a larger sense, right? So we've done that kind of work, but most of what we've done is on-the-job training, and we try to keep all of these points in mind. Does that get at your question?
I think it begins to answer the question, and I think it is a difficult question, and I threw that one to you.